Good afternoon and welcome to Takeover TV Sunday Footy. This is Mark Fine and I'm joined by Serge Paradise and the man with more grand final experience and less premierships than anybody in the history of the game, Rene Kink. Good afternoon, fellas. Serge, how are you?
G'day, gentlemen. Finey, Rene, just coming off the back of a very big Melbourne victory, I've got to say. But we'll get to that in a little while. Yourself, boys?
We certainly will. Rene, how's you? We haven't seen you for a couple of weeks, but boy, oh boy, was there a game to beat the band today. Carlton, Port Adelaide. How about that finish?
What a fantastic finish. But it should have been over a little bit earlier because I don't know the guy's name who missed that goal in the goal square. After a couple of, maybe they were fancy handballs, I don't know, just to finish it off. But probably possibly a kick before he gave it off to the young boy that missed it. I thought it was all over. But then again, they've come back, as we saw.
Yeah, you talk about that handball from Robbie Gray, but only 45 seconds before that, Carlton had a shot at goal and Zach Butters was able to mark it, what would have been a foot and a half from the goal line. So, Carlton have plenty of reasons to consider themselves unlucky. But then again, it all comes down to the end of the game. And Serge, did you see the reaction of Ken Hinkley and his fellow Port Adelaide coaches?
Absolutely. And while I was watching the game, and when I saw Robbie Gray take the mark, I said, he's in a tough angle and he's a long way out. But I tell you what, if there's a bloke who can put it through, it's Robbie Gray. And sure enough. And Kenny Hinkley, he looked 30 seconds before resigned to what was going to be a pretty, messy loss for Port. But yeah, he went absolutely nuts. It was like an underage footy coach who's won after the siren. It's fantastic. But Robbie Gray, what a superstar. The clutch.
It's how to reduce a coach just to a fan. In the end, when you got no control over the game, he's no different to any other Port Adelaide supporter. He just went ape droppings.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's going to have
let's have a look. Yeah, yes, Rene?
I think it might have a little bit of an impact on the finals. That sort of loss for Carlton and that great win for Port. So it remains to be seen. So we'll see what happens.
Let's have a look at the round of footy. Or first of all, of course, the changing face of life for an AFL footballer, because it's pretty clear now that with hubs set up in Queensland and what's going on here in Victoria, there's unlikely to be any more football in Victoria, including finals for the rest of the year, and these guys are not going to be coming back home anytime soon. Rene, what effect do you think that's going to have on the psyche and the morale of all these Victorian footballers? Does it set it up for the interstaters?
Yeah, it's very interesting how it's all happened and how it's currently occurring, and it's just a little bit interesting to see who was it, some of those soft tissue injuries these Geelong players are getting, and they possibly could be being in too many bunkers and falling out or climbing out of bunkers while they're playing golf in between their football training, as I've sort of noted in my reading of what's going on with these hubs. But going forward, look, I think it's going to work out. I certainly don't want a grand final in Wangaratta, and I'd be very surprised if the grand final's not in Victoria at the MCG.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, it has to be in Victoria, surely, the grand final going forward.
Yeah, you have to look at do we really want the grand final in an empty MCG or in a full Optus Stadium or a half-full stadium in Sydney? I don't know. I'm still yet to be convinced that I'd still rather see it in front of a crowd. What do you reckon, Finey? But there's no way they'll be playing at the G with anybody.
No, I don't think we'll see any more football in Victoria. I mean, we go to masks on Wednesday, and the rest of Australia, go to the pub on Wednesday. We are in a different world here in Victoria, and it's a world of hurt. Let's get on to the footy. Let's go all the way back to, and that was a very good win by Collingwood. I mean, this is a team with real premiership aspirations. situations, and they always have a tough game against Geelong. I thought that was just about how to short circuit Geelong and play finals footy. Rene, they looked very, very good. Your Maggies.
Yeah, look, I don't have a problem with playing against Geelong. A couple of times they've got hold of us when they shouldn't have, but I'm always very confident when we go out and play Geelong. We played very, very well. And exceptionally on Thursday night, it was terrific with Pendlebury and particularly to Goey doing so well. I'll be very surprised if he does 7 or 8 weeks because he ended up going out there with his fingers taped up. But maybe if we can get a couple of weeks rest out of him and get him right. But I don't see him missing that many games with that sort of injury. But with Pendlebury and the on-ballers who are really playing well, Treloar's another one, I think they're really on fire at the moment. And anyone they come up against going forward, well, we give a good account of themselves, particularly West Coast next week.
Serge, 5 out of 7 games, they've kept the opposition to under 40 points. Now, we know, of course, seasonally adjusted for shorter quarters, but it's still an amazing defensive effort, given that their best defender's not playing.
Yeah, exactly. And, you're referring to the Collingwood-Geelong game as well. You mentioned De Goey, Rene. That was it's a dominant last quarter. But their defensive performance was just spectacular. You're right, Finey.
Yeah, their back line's playing very well, even though Howe's out at the moment. And I did say Cripps today before. I think it was Crisp I was talking about. He's playing very well, coming off that half-back flank. Maynard's another one playing very well off the back line. So, if they can hold it together and keep building on it, and I think going forward, we'll give the top 4 or 5 a rattle for sure.
Now, there's a lot of people 4-1 and with a game in hand. You Stringer into the mix. He's a huge loss for them. No Dylan Shield against the Bulldogs. People were suggesting, Bulldogs were red-hot favourites. And it played out that way. And it's funny, all it takes is 4 quarters of football. But, Serge, I reckon Essendon, even though they are 4-2 with a game in hand and certainly still in the mix, they look a mile off. And all of that after one game.
Yeah, they did, didn't they? And even some of their, obviously missing Shield and Stringer was always going to hurt. But then some of their other sort of bright sparks, like McDonald, Tip and Woody, he struggled on the other night. And across the board, they just looked, whenever a team gets carved up by 7 or 8 goals, they always going to look slow. You go, gee, they look slow today. But the Bulldogs on the other side of the coin looked sharp and quick, and their young blokes all fired. And, I reckon it's a classic one of those games where the Bulldogs aren't as good as they appeared and Essendon aren't as bad as they appeared in that game. Remains to be seen. They do miss Shield around the backs.
Yeah, I think Serge coming from me.
It's funny you should say that. Rene, just quickly, funny you should say that because even though they scored 93 points, which is a big score in the modern game, and beat Essendon comfortably, I reckon the review for the Western Bulldogs will show a lot of missed opportunities. I reckon they're kicking inside 50, lacked a bit. They could have won by a lot more. Essendon were terrible until last 10 minutes they played all right, but until then they were horrible. And their forward line, look, Mick Hibbert, he came from North Melbourne. He's no forward. A young bloke, Ned Carl, made his debut. Not really much to show there. But speaking of debuts, Rene, how about the first piece of play for that kid, Cody Waitman?
Yeah, what a great goal that was from the boundary line and inside out punt. It was just fantastic. And he just put his body in all night, gave himself every opportunity to get the ball. He did a great job. But look, I don't rate Essendon, never have from the time they beat Collingwood. I just think they're too small. They certainly need to get Danaher back. They need to get a couple of other bigger players. Certainly.
Look, they've got no Danaher, no Stringer, no Shield, no Heppel, even James Stewart.
No Stewart, exactly. That's who I was looking for, Stewart. They need to certainly prop up some bigger players in the forward line. I was very disappointed with Josh Bruce's kicking, as you all may have as well, because he looked like he was some kid that had no idea in terms of his run-up and dropping the ball, and where the ball ended up each time on 3 occasions, I couldn't believe it.
He shanked about 4 in a row, didn't he?
Oh, it's just abysmal, for a guy who's been going all right with his goal kicking.
Now, Finey, you mentioned Cody Waitman. I've watched him play a fair bit at schoolboy level the last 2 or 3 years, and he played the same way as he did the other night, and he's a small forward, a genuine small forward, and he's not much taller than like Caleb Daniel, but even at schoolboy level, he had a bit of an aerial game as part of his skill set. And the reason for that was he was playing as a small forward next to Max and Ben King, who rarely dropped one, so the ball didn't hit the ground too often. So he became more of an aerial small forward than a crumbing small forward. And you saw that the other night. That's the way he's going to keep playing his game. And he's one of those kids who play at schoolboy level. And you can tell this with his after-match interviews and what have you. He has a bit of charisma about him and a bit of rock star about him. And you don't see that too often these days with the kid coming straight out of school, slotting into the senior side. And he was really good the other night. It was just good to see a young bloke get out there and, as he said, this has been his dream since he was a kid, and he pulled it off. So good on him.
It makes football exciting too when you see that.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a great segue there. That's perfectly done. Dude, talk about a young kid with a bit of Hollywood about him that doesn't mind telling looking straight down the barrel of the camera and saying, not be too modest, too self-effusive. Well, now we're on to the game between the Giants and the Brisbane Lions. You see Isaac Rankin. I mean, there's a kid who is good, who knows he's good. Sorry, that's for the Gold Coast. We'll get to the Gold Coast later. Sorry, the one I'm talking about. He's at the Gold Coast, Rankin. The one I'm talking about is Cam Rayner. Did you see his decisive mark on him against GWS? I mean, talk about precocious young talent. We know we've got Rowell on the sidelines. We'll talk about Rankin shortly. But boy, oh boy, in a game that was there to be won, how about Cam Rayner?
He has, again, he's got that touch of magic and mystique about him, Rayner. Has done for a while. Haven't seen it as much lately. But, yeah, you were dead right. Yesterday he was absolutely phenomenal. And
he pops up when you don't expect him to, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, that mark and goal late in the third quarter turned the tide. GWS were storming back into the game after, really, they'd been short-circuited. How good was the Paris Andrews in the first? He was repelling everything at centre-half back.
Yeah.
But they fought their way back, the Giants.
Yeah, at the moment with the Giants, they're looking at Leon Cameron and sort of saying, well, are we going to give him another contract going forward? There's some talk about that. All contracts with AFL coaches are very dubious at the moment because of the situation we're in. But, does he deserve to go forward, Leon Cameron, with GWS? I'm not sure. If they don't make the 8 this year, particularly.
If they don't make the 8, they'll probably have to have a close look at it because normally a coach who loses a grand final or gets smashed in a grand final, there's only one solution, and that is to win one the next year. But to miss the 8, questions will surely be asked. And there's question marks over just about every aspect of this whole season. So, coaches will have to wear it just as well. And as you say, Fagan is much under the pump as any other.
I think the big game to talk about tonight is North Melbourne and Richmond. North Melbourne have just become so disappointing, haven't they? And we could probably put 10 things down to ask yourself why they're going so bad. Richmond looked like a team on the up very much last night. They were terrific. And North Melbourne, was it Friday night? Yeah, they looked very, very disappointing.
Last night, yeah.
Last night, yeah.
Yeah. Now, just quickly before we do get to that, we did have that game, Gold Coast over the Sydney. You couldn't pick Sydney Swans. They've got everybody out. It's incredible really how many players they are without, losing Heaney for the season, Kennedy now for the main part of it. No Franklin, no Reid. Their ruckman are obviously Naismith doing his knee again, very sad. We saw a few youngsters. They had a bit of a crap. Gold Coast, well, you know what? They keep racking up the wins. It's not impossible that they may the eight. And will Gold Coast play in the finals this year? I mean, amazing as it is to imagine. They are heading back to back to home base in southeast Queensland for a lot of football. What do you reckon, Serge?
I reckon there's every possibility that they will. And again, I keep going back to it and saying that there's so many unpredictable elements to this footy season. And, because they were so horrible last year, Gold Coast, everyone's expecting, do they need, it's not just a rebuild, it's a total, rebuild from the ground up for that list. But you see what happens, some of their players start, getting a bit of confidence back. They get the top two draft picks. Matt Rowell's been sensational. Rankin, I mean, what they've got, because Rankin missed all last year through injury, having him in the side now, it's like they've had 1, 2 and 3 draft picks from last year. And they're all playing good footy. And Noah Anderson, he's been in Rowell's shadow a bit, but he played really well this week. And I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that, I don't think they'll probably go far in the finals if they make it. But just to sneak into the 8 would be just an enormous thing for them and set them off for next year as well. And I think they've still got some pretty good draft picks up their sleeve for the end of this year as well through all their trading. So
yep.
Who knows? I reckon they might just slot in this year.
I think their coach is
doing Rene?
Sorry, Mark. I think their coach is doing a wonderful job, and I think the young players really believe in him. And he's done the hard yards to get where he is with them at the moment. But I just love their enthusiasm and their ability to work as a cohesive side and really push the boundaries. I just love watching that every week. And especially against Sydney. Sydney's midfield is shot to the bits. So they're not going anywhere. They're going backwards at the moment. So, but with Gold Coast, they're plenty to look forward to.
Yeah, they remind me.
I've just got the...
Yeah, you're watching what I'm watching.
Go for it, Serge. Yeah. Go for it.
Oh, just some of the highlights of the Western Australian Derby.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm watching.
We're not talking the best goals of the mate. It's some of the best punch-ons you've ever seen, and some of the best high-flying marks.
But
just remember,
they cannot resist. They cannot resist every year, or twice a year, most years, before they show the Derby. Just cannot resist going back to the demolition Derby with David Kicker going El Berserko. Of course, Kicker played for both clubs amongst the 5 clubs that he played for, but they also love showing that Michael Gardner-Pavlich little dance that they had.
I think Matthew Pavlich did pretty well to avoid copping a good one from Michael Gardner, who was renowned for being able to throw one and
that's right.
And take one as well.
Well, let's get to that Richmond-North Melbourne game that Rene quite rightly puts a nail in the coffin for North Melbourne this year. Good and proper. Look, one of the problems has been not only injury to key midfielders, but a lack of willingness to admit they've been injured. They played Cunnington with a bad back a couple of weeks ago. It was actually quite embarrassing for Reece Shaw and North Melbourne that he took the field. And likewise, playing Zeeble this week, he only lasted, 15 minutes with a hamstring injury. Is that not telling the football world how skinny you are in depth, how much lack of faith you have in your backup midfielders, that you keep putting out midfielders that clearly are not fit and picking them on name rather than availability? Rene, what do you reckon?
Oh, look, I certainly believe that. A couple of bad mistakes the last couple of weeks with those players. I just don't think they've got there's no real game plan that I'm looking at with North Melbourne that gets me excited about why they move the ball. Excuse me. The probably biggest disappointment is Ben Brown at the moment. I know he's doing it pretty hard up there deep in the forward line, but I just don't believe he's putting himself in the right position. He's not giving himself the best chance, and and therefore he's looking very ordinary when the ball's up there somewhere near him and off it goes, and he's sort of flat-footed 20 metres behind someone. So I shouldn't be too harsh on him, but geez, he's a leading AFL leading goal kicker, and they've just got to use that system a lot better than they are now. So.
He's playing like a man completely devoid of confidence too at the moment. Yeah, he's not kicking the ball well. He's dropping marks that normally would just stick that you take, before you even drop them. He's just really struggling. He's emblematic of the whole way North are playing at the moment.
Yeah, but he's the real key and the real crux to their side when they're going well, as they have time and time again the last 18 months. Especially with Reece coming into play now, and I don't know what they're going to do to work out some sort of system that gets them back up there and working together.
Sure,
we'll see.
Now I don't think we've got word yet, but surely on the back of Zach Merritt getting a week for his punch on Silvani, surely Dusty Martin gets a week for his strike on McDonald.
I didn't see it, Finey.
Yeah, neither did I, Mark. I didn't see it either.
There was only just a little bit of footage of it, but it was off the ball. Didn't like the tag he was getting from McDonald, and to use an old wrestling term, if you remember, do you remember the old World Championship Wrestling?
Oh, yeah.
We sent him to the soul. He gave him one right in the guts, right in the old breadbasket. So, he might be in a bit of trouble. I'll tell you what, just before we get on to today's, I've got to mention, they were continuing showing some preview for the Derby.
Yeah.
And one player bobbed up. Now, if there was ever a troublemaker in football for a game, it was this bloke, because not only showed him barreling Daniel Kerr over, then walking up to West Coast supporters in the crowd and giving them an absolute serve. See if you know what I'm talking about. Not only was he a troublemaker in a derby, but he was also a leading light of trouble in showdown. And remember the old showdown at the Ramsgate Hotel after the game?
Yeah.
They reckon he was the main cause. So he was a troublemaker in derbies and showdowns. Do you know who I'm referring to?
You've lost me, Mark. I'm not sure.
Josh Carr.
Yeah, troublemaker from word go, Josh Carr.
Yeah. And then, he played in derbies and in showdowns. A perfect backdrop for the likes of him.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's roll on to today's football and that amazing game between Carlton and Port Adelaide.
It was just a good game of footy, wasn't it? It was the first quarter that Port jumped out, kicked the first 3 goals. Carlton looked to be awful. They hadn't touched the ball in the first 5 minutes. And then, bang, they kicked the next 5. And it was a good game, right till the very end of the game, as we said earlier. That clutch kick by Robbie Gray was just a spectacular finish. Although, as you said, Rene, Port could have put them to bed 5 minutes earlier, no question.
Yeah.
But, Carlton will rue that, because that was their chance to make a sort of a pretty big statement today.
What's Carlton all about at the moment? Why are they appeared to be a team to be reckoned with and playing pretty damn good football? Is it necessarily their stars, or is it just their overall balance of the side? The young kids who are out there are just doing their job, and they're working very hard as a side. I'm not really sure what's making them click at the moment to be where they are the last 2 or 3 weeks. Any answers?
I reckon a lot of it's got to do with Jack Martin and Eddie Betts, who the two of them together. I mean, today they just added that spark of excitement that the Carlton forward line hasn't had for years. And now when you add the big bloke Levi Casbolt has suddenly come good, they've got targets everywhere down forward now, which is why they're managing to kick decent scores. And they were good today, and through the middle. Cripps got a lot of it today, but I didn't think he was that dominant a player. But I think they're just finally starting to gel as a team, and they've got a better balance across the field, you know?
Yeah, I reckon Weitering's really come of age.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Weitering was fantastic again today. Almost all Australian centre-half back at the moment, I reckon.
Yeah, so they've got a bit of, yeah, I agree. They've got something to anchor their back line with. They're getting a decent return from their midfield, Setterfield. Sam Walsh, who I was critical of after 5 weeks, has been good in the last fortnight. And I thought actually Port Adelaide were a bit disappointing today. I think they expected things to happen rather than make it happen. I mean, not much from Charlie Dixon. Have a look at how about the chase for the Coleman, or as it's now, it used to be the race for the Coleman. Now it's called the Dawdle. Now it's the Dawdle for the Coleman. After 7 rounds, the leader is Tom Papley on 15.
Averaging 2 goals, 1 a game. Imagine that.
Tony Lockett could make his debut next week and hit the front in 1 week. If we had a time machine.
He'd still win. Still win by 60 goals. Yeah.
Why haven't we got goal kickers?
Yeah, it's quite amazing. So
3 or 4 is a bag these days.
Oh, you bet it is.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about a bag in the last game, because I tell you what, it's been a long time coming, but 2 weeks in a row, a nice return out of Wiedemann. That's not the big story. The big story is the best player in the AFL at the moment wears number 5 for Melbourne. I mean, I thought he had a very good year last year and a disappointing year for Melbourne.
Yep.
He really came of age. He's strutting his stuff. Every time he gets the ball, something happens. There was a goal today by the Demons. Brayshaw gets the ball, does well under pressure to spot up Bailey Fritsch, who does very well to kick it across to Petrarca. But what Petrarca does next is extraordinary. He's on his left, which he loves, and he delivers a pass to Wiedemann in the goal square that requires self-belief, ability, champion qualities all rolled into one. Only the great players do that, Serge.
He was absolutely spectacular today. I mean, I just mentioned how Ben Brown's playing like a bloke completely devoid of confidence. Petrarca's playing like a bloke who believes he can do anything out there, and he's proving it at the moment. Now, you're going to come a cropper sometimes, and not everything's going to work, but just about everything you tried today worked. That pass you just mentioned, Finey, was one of those ones, I reckon, if you're at the ground and you saw it at ground level, you'd think it was weighted it nicely so much that it travelled at precisely the right height off the ground to clear the Hawthorn player and absolutely hit Wiedemann lace out. It was just a spectacular play.
It was like a magnificent tee shot that has to get around some trees.
Yeah.
The great thing about Petrarca, we've been waiting for him, because as you know, we go back the last 3 years and we've been waiting and we weren't sure, but it's just terrific to see the man. He's obviously worked really hard on his football, and he's really starting to take control of his game and what he can do and what he can't do, and I just love it. I just love his.
Yeah.
And the other thing,
guys, we're coming to the end of the program.
Yeah.
Sorry, very, very quickly, Bill Waterston has sent us through an SMS, and he's asked, are we ever going to see a 100 goal in a season goal kicker again? And I'll quickly go. In fact, I'll go last. Rene, are we going to see 100 goals in a season?
No, not the way the game is currently, and I don't ever see it happening ever again. No.
Serge?
I tend to agree with Rene, but I'll say probably. I'll sit on the fence a bit. I'll say probably not. The odds are against it, but I really hope that we do. I hope that the game changes. It seems to change every year or two. Maybe it'll change back to it not be uncommon to have 25 goals and beat 23 in a game. I mean, it's hard to imagine that happening today, but maybe again we will see a superstar full forward who can kick 100 in a season. I remain in hope, but I'm a bit pessimistic about it, I've got to say.
Well, I say yes, we will. And that 100 goals in a season, I think, will come from Essendon.
What player?
the entire team. Wasn't the kick 5 goals in the 1990 grand final for Essendon? The answer was Essendon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we ain't seeing a player do it. I'm not 100% sure we're going to see every team do it.
No.
I mean, don't worry. There's 17-game season. There's a chance that have a look at Sydney. They're not a certainty to kick 100 goals this year.
And isn't that just an astounding statement to make, even though it's true?
Correct. It's just the last team. Here's an interesting one. Yeah, University back in the struggled terribly, and in their last year or second last year, yet they had the man who won the Coleman Medal, if there was a Coleman Medal. His name was Roy Park. He kicked 50 goals, was the highest goal kicker after the home and away season, and he also played Test cricket for Australia. So we might leave it on that University champion. Very quickly, one-word answer. Serge, who's going to win in the Derby?
West Coast.
Yeah, West Coast for me too.
That was 2 words.
West Coast for me, Mark.
Yeah, you've got to get West Coast down to 1 word. Eagles. You there, Serge?
Yes, guys.
Adelaide St Kilda tomorrow night.
You'd have to tip the Saints. I mean, their big name recruits have been a bit quiet the last couple of weeks, and not only that, how could you tip Adelaide to win anything at the moment? They're just a club at rock bottom.
Yeah,
and they are back home though. Rene, could they win back in Adelaide?
Yeah, look, I believe that St Kilda should win, but Adelaide just need to do something just for the general public, and being over there for sure. You just never know, but they're in a world of pain, Adelaide. So I'm going for St Kilda.
For the Eagles today, and if St Kilda don't win tomorrow, then expect me to break curfew and do something very stupid tomorrow night, or keep a mask on for the rest of my life. Gentlemen, thank you for being a great part of Takeover TV Sunday Footy Wrap. Big thank you to Sergio Paradise and Rene Kink, and we'll be back next Sunday to do it all over again.
Thanks, guys.